Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Clips Classics. I'm Steve Thornburg. We've been digging through our archives and have unearthed some video I think you'll enjoy. A mix of music and interviews, plus a look back at Uptown Shelby's Spring Fest. Let's start off with a 1986 visit to the home of the farmer's wife. Gene Cox sat down with Shelby Star columnist Kathryn Hamrick along with the farmer, her husband Klein, to find out how things are down on the farm.
I'm sitting in the kitchen of Klein and Kathryn Hamrick. That might be two folks that you don't know, but I think again that maybe you do know them. This is just an ordinary looking kitchen, but it's a little bit different, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. If you don't know who Klein Hamrick is, you might know him as the farmer. And if Kathryn Hamrick didn't ring a bell, she might be a little better known to you as the farmer's wife. There's thousands of people in Cleveland County that read an article that Kathryn writes in the Shelby Daily Star called The Farmer's Wife. And a lot of folks have really got interested in Kathryn and Klein, and whether or not their life is really like the column depicts it. So we've come to kind of dig out some of that information. We're going to find out about that this morning. We appreciate you folks letting us come into your kitchen this morning.
Glad to have you.
Okay, now let's just get right down to business. A lot of folks raise questions about you and Klein, and of course some of the things they want to know is about the column, and then other things that they want to know is about y'all personally. You know, like where did you come from, and you know how long have you been here in Cleveland County? Are you local folks, and that kind of thing. So if we can kind of remember to bring all those things up while we're talking, let's just take off and see if we can uncover all that information, because we've got a lot of folks who want to know more about you. So one of the questions that probably comes up the most, Kathryn, is how did you get involved in doing this thing in the first place?
All right, I began writing this particular column for the Foothills View, and that paper started in Boiling Springs about 8 years ago. A lady, Diane Holland, began the paper, and she was a friend of mine, and so I finally got up my nerve and asked her if I could write a column for her on homemaking. And I was going to write helpful tips. One of my first columns was going to be on how to cut up a chicken. I thought that would be real helpful to the ladies. But I thought, well, before I get into the homemaking tips, I better write a column introducing myself, and because I was fairly new to town. And so I wrote that in the style that I had always enjoyed using in writing, which was a humorous style. And the people seemed to enjoy that so much that the next week when I got ready to write about how to cut up a chicken, I didn't do it straight. I wrote a humorous piece, and the people liked that, so I never got around to writing about homemaking. That was 8 years ago, and I've written the column off and on, well, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. I wrote for the Foothills View for a while, and then I wrote for the Cleveland Times also for 4 years, and now I'm in the Star.
And we hear a lot of folks say sometimes about what they do in life, that they kind of, you know, fell on it by accident or something, you know, so that's interesting. So that's when all the trouble started, was it, Klein?
Yeah.
Everything was fine and calm, and all of a sudden
Everybody didn't know all my personal life till she started writing that column. Now they know this terrible little thing that happens, you know.
Right, so you just made a public spectacle out of it here, so she could have something to write about in the column every week. Actually, I think you told me, Kathryn, one time we were talking this, sometimes you just sit right down here at the kitchen table and do your writing, don't you?
I always sit right here at this kitchen table to do my writing. In fact, I was working on this week's column just last night.
Yeah.
Just right here.
A lot of folks probably wondered, you know, if you had a big office complex somewhere, you know, on the ninth floor of a building somewhere where you did all that or not. Now, what about the writing itself? A little bit about your background. Are you a journalist? Is that part of something you studied, or is this something that you just got into as a result of this? Where did you go to school, and how did you learn to do all this kind of stuff?
Okay. I went to Wake Forest University, and I graduated with a major in Spanish, which has been real helpful down here on the farm. I took some English, but I didn't take any journalism. I never have taken any journalism courses. And some people say that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, that I didn't study journalism. But I always had an interest in writing, and I always had the style, even as a young child in school, I got into trouble a lot with my writing. The teacher would give assignments like write some sentences using prepositional phrases. And I remember several times I got zeros because I did for assignments like, I wrote sentences like, I gave my teacher a bunch of dead rats. And the teachers didn't like my style always, so even in grammar school I had that particular style. And then, no, I never really had any training, but I always had the interest, and I guess I always had some ability, and I always had a humorous style that I always fell back on, even when I was supposed to be writing something serious.
Yeah. Well, now, Klein, all of this, I guess, is really your fault, because if you hadn't been a farmer, she wouldn't be the farmer's wife, you know, and all that. So, folks, I think folks would like to know a little bit more about you. Just what kind of farming do you do, and tell us about the farm operation, because when Kathryn writes a lot of this stuff, it's all the real thing, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
what's going on, yeah.
Based on the truth, anyway. I'm just mainly a dairy farmer now in Cleveland County here. I used to grow cotton and soybeans and a little everything, but with the margin of profit in soybeans, along with the dry weather that we've had, I've just quit growing them for a while till things maybe get better, or you know, the opportunity comes along to get back into it. But with our farm is what you would essentially call a family farming operation. All of us are involved in it. Kathryn does all the bookkeeping, and the boys help me do all the work that they can. And when you're all involved in something, like really makes for a lot of interesting stories now and then, and that's where Kathryn gets a lot of her writing. And I've always been amused at the things that she could write about that people would enjoy, because they were everyday happenings, you know, to farm people.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it, and Kathryn was reared in town, or city, you know, you might say, even though it was maybe a small town, but she wasn't exposed to a lot of these things which she finds interesting happening on the farm, and with her knack of writing makes them interesting for other people to read, so it makes a good combination for a farmer's wife and a journalist at the same time.
Yeah. So turning over a silage truck is just not an everyday thing in the city, though, even when you're growing up, you know, and all that.
I didn't turn it over. He turned it over,
Oh, yeah.
showing me how to drive.
That's quite often how it happens, isn't it? You know, we'll show you how to do something, you know, and that's when we always mess up, isn't it, when we're trying to demonstrate.
Well, really, I was trying to protect her more than I was sure. I didn't want her to turn over, you know.
Now, Kathryn, do you actually, how much do you actually get in farm? Now, Klein said, you know, you like you help do books and all that, but occasionally you go out, you know, and help with something on the farm if Klein gets in a pinch, you know, and you know how to work on them tractors and drive them or anything like that?
No, I don't. This year I did help with hauling silage. I did
Yeah.
drive a silage truck off and on for several weeks. But no, I've always just, well, really, I've just had so many babies that I was just too tied down. I always have had a baby to take care of, so I haven't been able to get too involved in the actual farm work. I have done other things. I've had in years past gardens, and I've done a lot of canning and freezing, that kind of thing that we think of as farm-wise activities. And I guess I ought to learn how to milk cows, but I don't really want to. I haven't learned yet.
See, if Klein takes bad sick here, you know, some morning or something, we've got to have somebody to fill in and all that, of course. But that's part of what, we mentioned the boys, but we really hadn't, you know, stopped to name or anything. We got Miles sitting here, sitting by, you know, and but there's three more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the boys.
Do you want to tell them about the boys?
You go ahead.
We have 4. Let's see. Miles is the baby. He's 2. And then we have Spencer, who's 8. And Leaf, who is 11. And then Jason, who's a teenager. He's 13.
Now, Jason, being the oldest, now he probably really gets involved, you know, with what's helping, I guess, around the farm and everything. And the other ones they're coming along, you know. So I remember, like a friend I had, I guess it's the same way on the farm. A friend of mine was talking about his wife wanting to buy him wanted to buy a dishwasher, He said, what do I need a dishwasher for? He said, I married one, I'm raising 3 more.
That's awful.
But I like the idea of the family farming operation. You wrote an article not too long ago that really hit home to me, because I was raised kind of in the country, you know, and around here, and you wrote about living in the country and knowing how to wave to folks, you know, when you read it. And I really enjoyed that, you know. And I think that's what, to me, a lot of the articles sometimes you write, you kind of took a shot at Klein on that one, you know. But I think a lot of folks really identify with that because it's so true, and I like the. Apparently, you've got a knack for seeing things, like Klein was saying, that I never thought about that. But when I read it, I thought, well, that's exactly it. That's the way folks do it around here, you know. And so now, do you plan to offer, if folks want to write in, can they get a little course, mini course, or anything like that? If we've got transplanted northerners or anybody down here?
Well, they need to learn how to do it if
Yeah.
they want to be accepted here. When I first moved to Boiling Springs, I was just so surprised that, you know, we just waved at everybody we passed, strangers, and sometimes he would pull off the road just and blow his horn to wave at people. And yeah, I noticed little things like that that are different from things I've been exposed to, and those make good things to write columns about.
Now, Klein, sometimes she kind of gets, you take the blunt of some of this in the article, you know, so is this, what about this whole situation, the marriage and the farm and all that, see, and we're going to expose all this right here on television for all the folks now at home. Is this a good 50-50 proposition, or what is it?
Well, you have to give and take, mostly take, you know. I had a friend that was working at NC State University when I was, just a little while before I got married. He told me, he said, Klein, one day when you got a little time, won't you come by my office? And I said, okay, and went up there, and he said, well, you're fixing to get married pretty soon, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, well, now, you ready for it? And I said, oh, yeah. I said, I'm ready to get married. And he said, you think you can, you know, meet up to the standards of marriage? And I said, oh, yeah, if you just go at this thing and you do your part and her do her part, well, everything will work out. And he said, no. Said, that's the first mistake. Said, you've got to give in 80% of the time and take 30. You know. And I said, well, now, I don't know about that. I said, I don't believe you put your foot down to start with. I said, if you'd put your foot down to start with, well, you'd have been a 50-50 man. He said, well, you go ahead, you'll find out. So I found out that he is pretty well right, you know.
Tell me now, out of all the articles that Kathryn's written, there's bound to be one that y'all had a little disagreement about. I bet you came home and you said, now, Kathryn, that's just not true, or that ain't the way that happened, or something like that. Now, which one do you think about when you think about something like that?
Well, it doesn't really bother me, you know, most of the stuff she writes. You know, even though she may say something about me, I just, stuff like that doesn't really bother me. I can remember one or two articles that she wrote, one about having good neighbors on the dairy farm, you know, that people were, you know, had to be good people to put up with a dairy farm because of the odors around the barn. And she mentioned one article about dead cows laying out till the people from Gastonia came to pick them up, you know, like I left them laying out there a week or two before they got them, and I told her now she just couldn't print that at the health department, and everybody else would be over there after me, you know. But all these personal things she said about me really doesn't bother me, because we kid each other a lot anyway about, you know, various and sundry things. I kid her a lot about how housewives really have it made, you know, they can just do whatever they want to do, and no pressures and so on. And,
just got time to sit around and write.
Get up like whenever they want to in the mornings, and go to bed as late as they want to, and that kind of stuff. You know. Of course, that turns into a lot of articles, you know, discussions we have like that.
Well, that's something you said there I think is very true, that I think people enjoy about your writing, Kathryn, is the part about the dairy farm and things like that, is that when most folks think about a dairy farm, if they've not really worked around one, there's a lot of things, that's just part of something that happens from time to time, you know, things like that happen, you know. And I think they enjoy from time to time the things that you bring out, that you apparently are real sensitive to because you weren't raised around it. So when you see it, you spot it, you know, and it really stands out. As a result of the article that you've been doing, it's kind of turned into something else for you. You get quite a lot of requests, you know, to speak to groups and things like that, don't you?
Yes, the people assume that when you write, you're also able to do public speaking, which is often not true, but you just get called and invited. So I have, over the last 4 years, gotten a number of invitations to do public speaking, and I have gotten into that. I've spoken, I guess, to 50-some groups during the last 4 years on a variety of subjects, but mainly about human experiences on the farm.
Well, we're just real pleased that you folks let us come out here to do this, because this is something that so many folks were interested in. You've got a big following in your article, and a lot of folks, I've had folks tell me, said, well, I wouldn't miss it. I just don't miss it. You know, I can't, every time it comes out, I want to read it. And so as the articles build up, and I guess there's quite a few now, you know, after the length of time you've been doing it now, you almost got the makings of a book. Is that something that might pop up down the road somewhere?
Oh yeah, I have given that some thought, because I do have a lot of columns and I have saved all of the ones that I've ever written, and I have about 400 now, I guess. And I save them in my safety deposit box. I don't have any valuables, but I save my columns up there, and so that I would have them even in case of a fire here at the house, because I would like to compile them one day in book form. I probably will wait several years though, mainly till Miles is in school. If now I were to spread out my columns and try to work on them, it would be a disaster, but maybe in several years I'll have a little more time to do that. And by then maybe also I'll have more columns so that I can choose really the very best ones. And I'll also have more readers so that I can sell more books. So there's several things to consider. I want the timing to be right, too.
Well, we appreciate very much you folks taking the time to talk with us. I hope a lot of people are really going to be pleased to see what it's really like, you know, to be the farmer's wife, or to see what the farmer has to put up with. So we're real glad that you let us come into your home, and a lot of folks really enjoy what you're doing, and we hope you keep it up, and we hope you have real success with it.
Thank you.
And we hope that Klein and things, you have a lot of successes, and the little failures on the farm make good articles, though, don't you, Kathryn? There's a lot of humor, you know, and so we enjoy your brand of humor, your sensitivity to seeing things. We appreciate you.